to the Fosterdaddirective podcast. My name is Charles. In this episode, we are actually going to be looking at fatherhood and connecting with fellow dads, essentially making new friends. Even as a millennial who's, I think, pretty well versed in technology, social media, and all that, I still find it hard to connect with people of similar interest or make new friends. So that's pretty much what this episode is going to be about. As always, please remember I'm not a trained professional. The views expressed on this podcast are mine. If it's anything like a legal topic, this one really don't need to seek legal help unless it's some bonkers thing you're getting into. But always remember, this is always changing. As in the world in general, this may be obsolete information in 10 seconds. So, first off, I'll start. Why is this important? Because having people with similar interest kind of is pretty important. I personally have about the same 5 friends. I've had 2 of them since high school. The other 2 I met in like the 2010s. So most of my friends have been 10 plus year friendships. I think the lowest is like 7, and I met him through one of my longest friends. So that's always not going to happen. Such as when I used to drink, I had friends that were drinking friends, and then when I stopped drinking, guess what? They didn't find me that appealing. They ended up in jail, in prison, other addictions. I ended up, becoming a foster parent. So we took different routes in life. So it shows that you're not always going to have the same, I'd say, interests. So it's important to find new friends, especially with parenting too. Once you become a dad, you're going to find out that people who don't have children don't usually find it too convenient to accommodate children. Thankfully, my friends are pretty amazing with that. All of them are pretty great with kids, super accommodating. We did a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and one of my longest friendships, he accommodated us having the girls there. We did a bunch of different things with them outside of Dungeons and Dragons, and it was a blast. So I've gotten pretty lucky in the friendship department, but he also lives across state. I was the only friend I live close to, I am roommates with, so I get to see him pretty often. But in general, I don't get to see a lot of my other friends. And when I was a drinker, that was all right. You could sit there and drink and kind of have something to do by yourself. But with having kids alone are mentally draining, and then not having anyone to talk to about said, I guess, stressors and issues that arise is kind of demoralizing, I would say. You end up not having anyone to not really vent to, but talk to about issues that would understand or have kind of remedies or solutions for said issues, which as a foster parent is a pretty big deal. I've run into a lot of issues in the 3 years we've done it. So like my gaming buddies, a few of them are parents, but we really don't talk about the topic of parenting, especially when we're playing, say, Helldivers. Rarely will talk about it unless he has a baby that's like a couple months old. So we'll talk about if he has to leave. Other than that, we don't really talk. So it's nice to have somebody to share resources and knowledge, having friends that understand the chaos of having kids and are accommodating to that. That's super, super helpful. Gives you something to do. And it can feel awkward at first. It has been for me. I'm going to go over a few different things that I've done that it's kind of awkward. I almost canceled on a few of the things, but ended up going and then going back, and it was absolutely worth it. I'm doing a whole bunch of new stuff that is a ton of fun. So the barrier to entry is focusing on sharing the other experiencing rather than forcing the networking. You want to get out there and share your experience, but you don't really want to feel like you're forcing yourself on them or using them as a venting tool. You don't want to make it seem like the only reason you are friends with them is a source for your frustration. And so, one of the first things that I really could find suggestions for online was social media, which is pretty obvious. I never really thought of it, to be honest. There are ways such as joining Facebook groups. I haven't really been on Instagram or X or any of those other things. The main thing I've found is Facebook. A lot of things that you go through, websites you go to will have a Facebook page associated with them, especially if they're groups in your local city. So look for them, join those, search, resources for dads in X city, county, state, and try to find them because some groups will have other groups in your area. So it's always good to look at. Go for your specific situation. Say you're a new dad, look for Facebook pages on new dads. For fathers in general, look for father pages, father advice. Adoption and fostering for me was what I joined. It was an adoption foster, like kinship, something or other group. And that's how I ended up meeting the group that I actually go to. It happens every third Friday of the month. We end up getting together for 2-3 hours. We go to this gym. We actually play pickleball. I've never played before. Was a little nervous about it the first time I went, but it was just me and the host. And then the last 2 times I've gone actually has been about 4 to 5 of us per group. And actually next month we are doing a retreat to a city up in northern Michigan where we are going to spend the weekend just kind of hanging out. It's an Airbnb. It's got a ton of stuff like a gym. It's next to like an ATV track. So there's going to be a ton of stuff to do, and I never would have found this if I had not got on Facebook. Joined that group. The dad had actually reached out to me. He runs the groups, so it was awesome. I've ended up having a blast. It's nice to talk to him about different things such as frustrations with Medicaid, right? That's the one for kids. Sorry, I'm blanking on it right now, but one of the kids has Priority Health and one has Blue Cross Complete. No one will accept Blue Cross Complete for any type of testing for mental health services, and it's absolutely frustrating. And while I could say it to my friends, they would not understand, but he's dealt with enough or had enough foster kids to know it is a frustrating mess. And so it's been nice to be able to chit chat with him. And then you can talk about other things such as sleep struggles, stress, identity shifts. He had some foster kids who were refugees, and that was interesting to hear about. And it's nice to form these deeper bonds that you're obviously not going to find in people who don't really understand you. You can obviously use platforms like Reddit. I didn't even think about that one. Or TikTok pages. I've made some TikTok videos. They get some decent likes. They don't transfer really over to podcast listenership very well, but it is something that you can look into and look in the, I guess, comment section and then find pages that are related to groups that have dads in them. And such, like I said earlier, local dad groups and meetups, search for local areas, different parenting groups, organizations in your city that might have groups that meet. They You can try to search for libraries, community centers. Churches have a lot of them if it's faith based. Honestly, I know for some people who aren't faithful into religion, I know it kind of sounds like questionable if you want to do that. I've found a lot of them. I'm not very religious, more faithful if anything, but I've found that a lot of them don't really push too much the narrative of trying to push off the religion on you. A lot of them meet if it's a dad's group. Even with AA, any good AA sponsor is going to tell you that God in the whole AA aspect is not. It doesn't have to be God as in a religious sense, but any higher power. So search for those. I know I found a few in Grand Rapids, all things Fatherhood, Men's Center, other religious organizations. You can look for governmental agencies. They might have resources such as Friend of the Court. You can meet other dads in classes if you take any parenting classes. And then situational based, such as foster care agencies may have materials on how to help find groups, classes, and mentors. They offered for me to be a mentor at one time, but it's like, I'm so new. I started in 2023. It's only been 3 years of fostering. I don't know jack all. So it doesn't help for me to be a mentor when I could use a mentor instead. And you can always use kid centered activities as well, such as baby classes with swimming, sensory play. Try to meet dads there because, especially if they are, I don't mean this to sound sexist in any way, but if it's like a female dominated class and then you find the one other dad there, that automatically gives you an in to talk to them. Because, I mean, I've always found it, women get hit on enough, honestly, that I'm a little weary about talking to any woman because I don't want them to automatically think I'm trying to hit on them. So it's easier to gravitate towards the other guys in the room and be able to talk to them. And it's a nice outlet, and you can even just talk about the class and make a connection there. My issue is always like trying to connect with the person in general and kind of push it towards meeting outside of whatever you're doing. So that just might take some fine honing. You can go to parks and playgrounds, start up conversation with dads there, daycare, pick up and drop off, maybe chat with the daycare workers and find friends that way. Not the workers themselves, but dads that you could potentially meet up with. You can also create your own space. If you are having trouble finding friends and you want to connect, consider making your own Facebook group about being a father and certain different interests that you have. Make a gaming dad group, or if you have certain crafting you like to do, metalworking, automotive, there's so much you can do. And when I say dad group, if you're a woman listening to this too, woman group, I mean, there's always a need for these type of groups because I think a lot of people want to be part of them, but it's a lot harder to find people that want to actually run them and maintain them. So it's always nice. You can get a following and then from there start making different events, and it really helps when you do those niche groups such as fitness and the other topics that I touched on. You can look at for podcasts and online communities such as this one. I have no following, so unfortunately you're not going to really find anybody to chat with outside of emailing me, but engaging in those communities can help. I know for Time Suck that I listen to, there's a dad's group on there. I've posted a few different times about fostering. Unfortunately, fostering is very niche, so it's been hard to actually find anybody to talk to that knows about what I'm going through. So you can look at these other our content creators, TikTokers, look in the comments sections and try to interact with people there. And you can use your work in existing circles, such as coworkers, if they're dads, chat with them, kind of reconnect with friends who have kids if you've lost contact for a long time. You don't have to wait for the deep friendships to actually have a friendship. You can start with conversations, just as talking about different things related to your kids or your own personal interests, and try to connect on theirs. It takes a little bit of effort. I'm the type of person where I don't really want to burden somebody with, maybe a conversation they don't want to be in or hanging out with me, because I know there are some times where I not really the greatest to be around, mostly in the topic of I don't know what to do or I do get busy. So just remember that and use that to one of your advantages of getting to talk to them, because honestly it could be a person like me who wants to hang out, and as long as you're not a clown who I just start to hate because you're a absolutely garbage coworker, I will go hang out and do pretty much anything. and I'm really not that hard to please. I think I can hold enough of a conversation and maintain enough of a connection to be interesting to be around. It's just I'm terrible at initiating that stuff. I am so bad at it. And all you have to do is keep it simple and low commitment. Don't push for it or make it some big extravagant event. You don't have to do like the next weekend I'm doing. You don't have to plan a whole weekend for a couple of guys if you're just getting to know them. Do something easy. Go do axe throwing, jump on Discord and Steam and play a game together, Xbox, whatever system you're on, and do that. And that combining those interests is one of the best way to form them long bonds. Especially with me trying to get back into shape, that's a major point that I could use, especially if I find somebody who's into the gym and wants to work out and be like, "Hey, can you show me how to, work on A, B, or C muscles, or how can I not be a fast slob anymore?" So you can do. Obviously, I've done gaming. I know in Elite Dangerous, there's a group. I think it's called the Fatherhood. It's something Fatherhood, and the whole point of the guild is not to stress you out while playing the game. Their whole thing is they understand that being a father gets crazy and becomes a full-time job in and of itself, and you shouldn't have to worry about getting on once a week and maintaining a status of when you were on last and putting this huge commitment and stress into your life. And it just like, hey, if you got time and want to come game and you want to hop on here and hop on with some of the other dads, do that. And you can share these interests and make it into some connections where you actually create real bonds with somebody. And finally, you just really got to be patient. I mean, I've spent over 2.5 years being a foster parent, and it took me joining that Facebook page to actually start bonding with any of the other dads. And I don't have a huge bond. We don't really talk outside of the events, but it's one of the things where I do show interest in it and want to take a part of everything and try to make sure that, well, he fosters one of the siblings of the girls I foster, so we kind of see each other outside of the event too. But oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. But that's why I've been patient, and it's only been, I think we've met 3 times so far, so I don't want to go off and be like, hey, you want to meet up for dinner or something? Because I always feel weird about that. So I just have been focusing on kind of making sure I go, showing a big interest in it, showing that I want to be there and hang out with them, and then hope it snowballs into something else, like getting invited to that weekend out. They didn't have to invite me. They don't know. I might be an absolute maniac. Especially if I was in my 20s and still a drinker like I was back then, I would not have been fun to be around. I didn't even like myself back then. So honestly, that's all I can really think of in terms of connecting with other dads. But there are so many things out there that I didn't even know of more than 6 months ago, and I'm 35. So it'll take a little bit of effort, and I know. Honestly, I hate wasting time on things and trying to connect with people and then having it be a dud and then feeling like I just wasted, 2 hours talking to somebody and we're not going to connect. But if you do that enough times, you'll eventually find friends and people to connect with. So keep pushing. I eventually want to get this podcast to something similar to that, but honestly, it's going to be a slow crawl, I'm sure. But thank you so much for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, and share. Email me at fosterdaddirective@gmail.com with any feedback, ideas, or stories. If you want to come on here and talk about any different topics, share your story, just send me over. Honestly, if you want to be interviewed, send me over topic ideas that you want to talk about. I've had people reach out and then I spend, a half a day going through stuff that related to them. If they have a book or a website, building questions on it, then I email them back and they don't respond to me. So it's like I wasted a half a day talking to you or trying to figure you out and like connect with you on a deeper level and show you that I'm interested in having you on the podcast and you just dip on me, that's super frustrating. And so I've been kind of snarky with some of my responses to emails to my two podcasts, because if you're going to, I think a lot of their emails are AI generated, because they just, the wording seems a little bit off and it's very generic. So I think they find my podcast episode and then run it through AI on how to draft an email to me. And that is, I always respond to every email by looking at what they are about, their book, website, all that, draw up questions, and then respond to them. I don't even run the questions through an AI generator. I create 10 questions off notes I take on their material. So if you're going to reach out to me via email, at least have the self-respect to send me an email that's 2 sentences long that's like, hey, I want to be on your podcast, I want to talk about blah blah blah, and then we can talk from there. Don't send me some 6-paragraph AI generated email, because it's a waste of your and my time. So thank you so much for listening to that ramble as well. At the end, I actually want to start doing dad jokes from now on instead of what I've been doing. I forgot before this episode, so I don't have one in the bag. But I think it's going to be either that or puns, because I find them hilarious. Like, one I heard was, what do you call a seagull that lives in Lisbon? Portuguese. I probably butchered the joke because I don't have it on me, but I love cheesy stuff like that. I once had a book of Bushisms and all the crazy things he said. It just is one of the things that made me laugh. So thanks for listening. I appreciate everyone who's listened. I reached like 350 listens, which isn't anything for the amount of podcast episodes I put out, but if you are repeatedly listening, just know that I do appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.